The Trap Set will always be available for free, but we rely on donations from our listeners. Please visit our website at thetrapset.net and click donate. Subscribe to our show on iTunes, and if you enjoy what you hear, give us a review.
This episode of The Trap Set is brought to you in part by Colectivo Coffee, handmade coffee since 1993. Check them out online at colectivo.com. This is Joe Wong. Welcome to The Trap Set, where each week we explore the lives of drummers. I want to play something for you. You're hearing Feeling All Right by Warpaint, featuring my guest, Stella Mozgawa on drums. Formed in 2004, with Stella joining in 2009, Warpaint has garnered widespread critical acclaim and won fans across the world. Although they've performed at major music festivals and supported legendary artists such as Nick Cave, the Los Angeles band is just hitting its stride. And since Stella joined, the songwriting process has become more collaborative and distinct. One thing that makes Warpaint an incredibly exciting band is its ceaseless creative evolution. And with each step forward, Stella's contributions have become more integral. Her creative, nuanced, and hypnotic drum parts are meticulously composed and utterly essential to each song. Now here's our interview with Stella Mozgawa. Tell me about where you came from.
Well, in a broader sense, I came from a Polish heritage. So both my parents are Polish. And they immigrated to Sydney, Australia in 1982. And I was born in 1986, so I'm kind of a mutt.
Well, how are you a mutt if you're
Well, I'm mostly Polish, but I mean culturally I was brought up in an immigrant household with lots of my kind of assumed family was not my, biological family. So a lot of the Polish community in Australia, and then obviously I went to an Australian school, and
What brought your parents to Sydney?
Well, Poland was under militant law, so in 1981. So the military was basically in charge of the country, and they allowed refugee status to certain people. And I think my parents, I can't remember if they were official refugees, but they were musicians, and they organised a tour that went to Yugoslavia, which allowed them refugee status from that point.
And when they got down to Australia, what did they do?
They they continued to play as musicians and in some professional manner, but my mum went from being a pop starlet in Poland in the late 70s, early 80s to playing in restaurants with my dad, and he was a bass player, so they had this little duo thing, and that was kind of the only way that they could make money. And I don't think they realised that there would be such a huge shift. But they were confident enough that they continued to do it throughout most of my childhood till I started high school. So from 0 to probably age 12, I remember them going to gigs.
And that was their main profession?
Night. Yeah, it was. It's so crazy to think about it now. Yeah.
Were they happy doing that?
Yeah, I think they were for a time, and I think for them, maybe initially they assumed that things would kind of change a little bit, and maybe it would evolve into something of maybe Dad playing in a band and touring with them, but they did a little bit of touring. They played in a band. I can't remember whether they were a cover band or not, but that supported this Australian legacy group, now legacy group, called Midnight Oil. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Of course.
Yeah. So,
was there an allure to watching your parents do that? Did you want to become a professional musician from an early age?
It's so weird. I haven't really thought about that a lot. I don't know if that really had like an obvious influence on me. I just saw it as, I guess, the fact that they were doing it.
The fact that it was possible.
Exactly, yeah. And that there wasn't really like a fringe lifestyle necessarily. And it wasn't like, oh, my parents are on this tour bus and they're always drunk and they're always on drugs or whatever. They were really professional, that was their job, and that was their kind of 9-to-5 equivalent, and they would get dressed a certain way and they would have to be there at a certain time and perform certain duties. And so there was like a really good practical element that I learnt from that.
Did you have siblings?
No.
All right. Mm-hmm. So it was just you and the parents. And that's why you were on
I know
tambourine
what you're assuming
duty.
right now.
What?
Everyone assumes
No, I'm
that.
not. What are you projecting? Now you have to say.
Everyone thinks that only children are spoiled. Well, that's a typical.
Is that what people think?
Yeah, I get that a lot. People go, oh, I didn't realize, or I didn't assume that you were an only child. You don't seem like an only child. Thankfully, that's what people say. But I don't know if they're just being nice.
Were you spoiled?
I don't think my parents had the I don't know, the elements with which to spoil me, really.
What about
we were pretty middle class,
Yeah. But you can be spoiled with attention, too.
Yeah, I think so. I think my parents are lovely and I love them, but there was a neuroses in the house for sure, and they're quite, anxious people sometimes, and having just one child to focus all their love and all their anxiety on is sometimes, yeah.
How's that working out for you?
Well, I left home when I was, I moved to America when I was 20, so.
Were your parents grooming you to become a musician?
No, I think they wanted to maybe instill the elements of discipline.
Right.
That related to music. So when I was 6, I started piano lessons and then continued that till I was 9, but it felt so rigid and crazy to me, and I would always fake stomach bugs and illness when it came to piano lessons, because it was just this dreaded thing for me.
Why did you gravitate to the drums?
In primary school, I was playing guitar and still piano, and there was a kid who was
Were you
kind
into
of the
guitar?
school drummer. Yeah, I liked it, and I still do. I
Yeah.
still play a lot of it.
Yeah, okay.
And I really love it, and it's such a different beast,
Mm-hmm.
to the drums, and I don't have the same tricks, I guess, and so it feels like kind of new.
Right.
But yeah, there was a kid that played drums, and he would never let me sit at the drum kit, and so I thought, oh my God, I want to do that so bad, So
Because
I think
it was forbidden?
That. Exactly, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to kind of prove him wrong and myself right, that I could do it.
So basically you're saying that you got into drumming out of spite?
You could say
I'm
that,
kidding.
yeah.
I'm kidding.
No, there's definitely a part of that. And I think that's a really
Are you a competitive
massive
person by nature?
I think I was maybe when I was younger. Now I'm less concerned about I used to get so crazy about if I lost at tic-tac-toe or something like that, I would just feel like a loser, with every fiber of my being. And now I just don't care about that kind of stuff,
Never?
No.
What did you have to do
Weird.
to grow out of that? Did you do anything consciously, or did it just happen with time?
I think when I started drums, I felt like I had a lot to prove. And maybe it was because I was a girl and there weren't a lot of female drummers in my community, or that I was aware of. And so I felt like I got to prove to these people that I'm as good as all the boys, you know? And so in that case, I think that competitive spirit was maybe just in the air in general when you're younger. And there's a sport or an athletic element to playing music sometimes in terms of speed, technique, all those kind of things. And when you're focusing on that, it's very easy to fall into like the competitive realm as opposed to the artistic realm.
Those are things that can be measured quantitatively.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's
so did you
thrilling
get into
when
that
you're
stuff?
younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. And thankfully, I think, because I never really officially studied drums or music for that matter. And so I listened to a lot of Tool and a lot of Primus and a lot of kind of, they're thinking drummers. They're quite cerebral.
The athletic drummers of the 90s.
Exactly, yeah. But also extremely creative. But for me, it was about nailing those parts, you know what I mean? And even Steely Dan records, some of them, like there's certain fills that are kind of...
What's your favorite Steely Dan record?
Royal Scam.
Okay.
Yeah, start to finish, it's my favorite. Asia's great and probably the most popular choice, but I love everything about Royal Scam. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. What's yours?
I like Asia. I like Pretzel Logic.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One.
I have a love-hate relationship with them.
I think most people do, if not hate.
Sometimes I love them and sometimes I hate them. That's what
Right.
I mean. It's not like a simultaneous thing.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just kind of like a special meal that you can only eat a couple times a year. For me.
Yeah. I was talking to someone a little while ago about the record Gaucho.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it's weird. I kind of put it on in the car and I was driving around, and after like 3 or 4 songs, I thought, I shouldn't be listening to this. Like I started to feel very odd about listening to it. And I think that's especially for that record, that's a real test of your loyalty.
Was your dad a big Steely Dan guy?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I think so early on, he now makes audio speakers.
Okay.
So he tests them with his favourite records. And Babylon Sisters is the go-to song that he tests his gear with. And so I grew up with that song and that feel and that...
That's the Purdy Shuffle right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going over to Bernard's house on Wednesday.
Oh, my God. How cool.
He's the next interview directly after you.
Well...
I mean, they might not air in that order.
Sure.
But... So,
amazing.
now I've dropped 2 names. I'm sorry about that.
No, I mean, there's some of my favorite drummers. And you know what? I was really excited when you emailed me and there was like I went on your website and saw that you had interviewed Drumbo.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like the name. I was like, yep, I got to do it.
Yeah, of course.
And I listened to it and it was so emotional. It was really beautiful. Like, I was quite struck by it.
So how are you going to top that? We need to have a breakdown.
Yeah, cool. Give me another
kidding.
cup of coffee and I'll probably have probably vomit or something. Yeah, there'll be some drama. I'll add some drama to it.
Are any of the other, are any of your band members in Warpaint like abusive geniuses?
No.
No. I don't think it's going to go into that territory.
Sometimes self-abuse, but I don't think anything dramatic or anything noteworthy at all. I think it's just general.
Well, you don't strike me
stuff.
as somebody that would take a lot of shit or shy away from confrontation.
You know what? I'm not. I don't like getting in fights, but I like discussing things.
This episode of The Trap Set is brought to you in part by that great Gretsch sound. USA Custom, Brooklyn, and Broadcaster Series drums, all proudly handcrafted in Ridgeland, South Carolina. For over 130 years, that great Gretsch sound has endured. See everything Gretsch has to offer at GretschDrums.com. Was there a time when you decided you wanted to make music your life's work?
Yeah, I kind of knew that I wanted to do it from... I could be romanticizing it in my head now, in my memories, but probably like 14. I remember at that point I'd joined like my third or fourth band or something in high school, and just knew that. And I think teachers also were like, oh, you're really, you're quite committed to this, and there seems to be like a passion that seemingly eternal, at least with their perception of me, was that, oh, this kid really wants to do this and is really passionate about it. And so teachers were really encouraging of that. I remember an English teacher that I had that was also my drama teacher said, I was so nervous about my HSC, which is, I guess, your SAT equivalent. And she said, you don't have to worry about it. You're not going to be in the academic world necessarily, and you're just going to play music. So just relax.
Is that what happened? Did you go to college?
I went to college for 2 years. And
what did you study?
I did psychology for social work.
And then you would go play with bands?
And then I would go and play, yeah. And after a while it just got too much, and I felt like I wasn't fully engaged in either of them. And I told my parents that I wanted to take a year off, which it was very easy to defer at that time. And I made up a lie. And on my deferral notice, I said that I was going to be travelling overseas with music, and I didn't want to jeopardise my place in the course. And so I'm just going to take a year off. And they accepted that, and I started a job in a music shop, and I was still playing in bands. And within like 2 months, I got asked to move or play in this band that moved to New York. So it was it was almost like...
So you lied your way into the truth.
Yeah. I don't even know why I did that. I guess I wanted to impose some kind of severity to it. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm playing in these bands and there's too many of them and playing too many shows in pubs, this year. So it kind of had to feel a little more of a serious kind of issue to take a year off from college. So I think in that way it wasn't about me. I didn't want to be bratty or anything. It was just, it seemed more important to be going overseas and doing something.
So what was the band in New York?
It was a band called Mink, kind of like a rock and roll band.
How did it feel?
I mean, amazing. It was really scary at first for me, because it meant leaving, my friends behind, and to just be committed to one thing and taken into this new environment was pretty scary for me. But totally thrilling as well. Like I couldn't have said no.
Did you have to get a job as well?
No.
So it was a professional gig.
Yeah. It was pretty nuts, actually. Thinking back now, I've just been, I feel like the most fortunate person in the world. Like there's few steps along the way that have brought me to the place that I'm at now, and I feel like I'm catching up with myself or catching up with my fortune sometimes.
What do you mean by that?
I feel like I've been really blessed with the opportunities that I've had, and so I feel like I have to...
like you're not prepared for them?
No, I have to earn them within, like, on a spiritual level. I know that sounds hippy-dippy, but I have to prove to myself that I was worthy of those things happening.
How did you meet the people in Warpaint?
I met each of them separately, but I guess the short answer is that I met Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers when I came here on the way from New York back to Australia. He was like, oh, when are you going to come back to LA? Let's make some music. And so that happened, and I lived with him for a few months, and he knew the girls through...
With Flea?
Yeah.
In Malibu?
That was my first... not official, but like it was my first residence in
Flea's house.
Yes.
Doesn't he own a bunch of houses?
He does, yeah.
In Malibu, was it, or
it was in Malibu?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no rhyme or reason to that happening. It was just...
Well, yeah. I mean, he must have
insane.
seen something in you that he appreciated and wanted to help you out and make music together.
Yeah.
So there's reason.
Yeah, but in my mind, I was like, this is just insane, and a massive learning curve for me to be put into that kind of situation.
When did you start focusing more on the artistic side of playing music and taking your focus away from the technical side?
It's a really good question. I think it was a natural progression for me. Shortly after moving here and playing with Flea, and that being not just like a massive learning curve on a musical level, but philosophically, I think I had I don't even know what I would label it as, but something close to like a very gentle existential crisis where I just thought, what am I doing? You know, I constantly kind of still think that, but far less. And because I asked myself, why am I doing this? And I realized that I didn't want to be the greatest drummer in the world, and that was never really my goal. But why play music then? Well,
that's how your inner dialogue goes. Well, if you don't want to be the very best, then why
what's
would you
the
bother?
point?
There are already albums out there that have John Bonham on them.
Exactly.
So why would I bother putting this out into the world?
Yeah.
Littering the world with more crap.
Exactly, yeah.
That's
or
how you
mediocrity or whatever. I guess just what's the function of music in my life? And I realized that it makes me so happy, and it makes me feel like I have a purpose in this world. And when you have that, you're less of an asshole. That's what I realized. Because I could see people suffering. They would either play music that they didn't want to play, or they weren't playing music that they wanted to play, or they were stopping themselves in some way, or the environment that they were in, you know, was preventing them from being creative. And it turned them into like really, you know, sometimes unpleasant people to be with, or people that you could see were quite noticeably distressed, you know. So I just realized I want to be happy, and I want to bring happiness.
Do you feel like you say that you feel very fortunate, but do you think that you took proactive measures to put yourself in a situation that works for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think constantly thinking about what's the point and why am I doing this and what makes me happy, that naturally leads you into making certain decisions and saying yes or no to certain things that get you closer to what you ultimately want. So I think it's not really as vague of a thing as I used to think it was. I think it's quite, like you said, it's very real world, practical measures that you take.
So how did you meet Nick Cave? Was that through your connection?
He was doing this North American tour, and there were a few support acts, and we have the same management.
Ah, got it. So it wasn't that your dad played bass on some Nick Cave album?
That would have been amazing. This weird Polish guy. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense if he was maybe German. That would have been a possibility. But totally different world.
Yeah.
But yeah, we met. I mean, he's one of my absolute heroes. No, I'm not just saying that. You know, after seeing him play or after being on tour with him, I've been a fan for many years. And
how did your impression of him change after you supported him?
I was terrified to meet him because he's kind of like Björk in that way. For me, he's has an archetypal status, and I was so afraid that he was going to be a bastard and that we were not going to get along, or that he was going to be, you know, he was just going to disappoint my image of him. And so I made a pact to myself that I wouldn't interact with him unless he interacted with me. And the first show, which was probably in Denver, he finishes his sound check. I'm sitting downstairs. It's just myself, the tour manager, and one of our crew guys. And you just hear this clippity-clop of like loafers coming down the stairs, and then his booming voice saying, you know, hello? Is anyone down there? And we're like, yeah, hi. And he comes downstairs. He goes, are you guys Warpaint? And then we kind of got introduced, and he said, "Oh, you're the Australian one. I've heard a lot about you. It's so nice to meet you." And then from then on, it was just easy, you know. And every night he invited us back to their room and made us juice, and we hung out with Warren Ellis, and he was so sweet to us, and really, really sweet to me. And
Tell me about your creative role in Warpaint.
obviously drummer. I write some of the songs, or I co-write some of the songs. And
The music and the lyrics?
Yeah. Not the lyrics so much. There's one song on the last record that I wrote the music and the lyrics for. Engineer a lot. I guess we all produce or co-produce our music sometimes, or whatever that means in a classical sense. You know, we help arrange each other's songs or our own songs, or the groups, the kind of material that we have, or demos and things like that. So I've never felt, you know, I play all the instruments that I want to, or are appropriate on any given song. There's no real limitations that we give each other, which can sometimes be like, you know, like throwing a pin into like a cavernous hole, and sometimes it's what keeps us going, you know, is that we've all decided that we can't stifle one another, you know, unless it's for a good cause to get to finish a song or whatever. But it's the first time joining this band was kind of the first time that I felt like fully creative, and not just there to play drums.
A hired gun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are your goals moving forward?
With the band,
yes,
or just in general? I think we're getting closer to realizing like how to work with each other in a really harmonious and quick way, time sensitive, and just making a few more good records is really all you can ask for, you know. And
Just like you had somewhat of a trajectory in mind when you were 14 and you decided you wanted to become a professional musician, do you have a trajectory in mind from now until you're 40? Do you have a plan?
Yeah, I think I'll always play drums because I love it. And I want to get better. I just want to produce music, whether it's producing other people's music or producing my own, or, you know, continuing to work with Warpaint. And I think my goal is just to, like, not stress so much about whether this is the right thing that I'm doing with my life, and just enjoy doing it, you know. And that's slow. I think I'm slowly getting over that.
Where
hump,
does
you know?
Where does that stress come from? Like, what else would you be doing?
I don't know. I don't know, but
it's not like you were considering a different career and you're debating whether or not you made the right choice, right?
No.
I mean, this is what you've wanted to do.
Yeah, totally.
So where do you think that stress comes from?
You know, it's not, for a lot of people, it's not. I mean, LA is different. This is the thing. This is the wonderful thing about this city, is that you can be a musician of my caliber, which is like playing in a alternative band we're not Maroon 5 or anything, but, you know, we tour and lucky enough to go around the world and be able to support ourselves. But I think conventionally and traditionally, you know, it's not a normal job, you know, and there aren't a lot of people that you can relate to in terms of what you're actually doing and what you're going through.
But you have your parents.
Yeah, totally. But, you know, they
Do you think about having a family and slowing down?
Yeah, I guess so.
So is that part of the conflict?
No.
No.
No. It's more, you know what? It's more, I think for me, is finding specifically what I want to do. So when I wake up in the morning, I know I've got A, B, and C to do. I really like I like that kind of lifestyle.
Do you write
So
lists?
I like knowing that I have tasks, you know.
Do you write lists?
I do. I used to a lot more. My roommate and friend makes fun of me for doing that, saying I love lists. Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like when you're living,
Excuse me.
when you're working for yourself and you're
Yeah.
living in a creative lifestyle, you're the one that has to be responsible for sort of managing your own time.
Yeah.
So things like lists can come in really handy.
Yeah, totally. Well, I try and get all my stuff done, but I just like waking up and knowing that I have something to do, whether it's playing with the band or playing with someone else or knowing that I have a session or just keeping busy, you know. And I think turning that particular thought into an art form is something that I plan on doing, you know. Getting it right. Of like, yeah, this is useful for me to be playing on this album, or this is useful for me to be making my own music right now, and not worrying about what the other possibilities or options are, like really putting everything into those moments.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a good place to end it.
Cool. That was really enjoyable.
Stella Mozgawa, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set. And visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.